Coming up on Network Africa. 6 people killed and 4 others injured after flash floods in Malawi. The UN peacekeeping mission chief says South Sudan is not ready for elections after his visit to the country. Plus, Egypt and the UAE carry out a second joint airdrop of humanitarian aid over Gaza. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olarinde. The World Food Programme is warning that the war in Sudan could trigger the world's largest hunger crisis unless fighting stops. During a visit to a camp in neighboring South Sudan, the head of the WFP, Cindy McCain, said the victims of the war had been forgotten, calling for aid agencies to be given access to those facing emergency levels of hunger and those who are stranded in areas that have been cut off by violence. More than 10 months of fighting between rival forces has left nearly 14,000 people dead, over 8 million displaced, and much of the country's population cut off and facing rising hunger. As the war rages on, Sudanese families continue to flee to neighboring countries. Many have been displaced multiple times. South Sudan is not ready for elections and a lot needs to be done. Now, this is coming from UN Peacekeeping Chief Jean-Pierre Lacroix. Mr. Lacroix was briefing the Security Council in New York after his visit to South Sudan in February. He believes a number of challenges facing the country, including political competition among the ruling elite, increased intercommunal clashes, and an influx of returnees and refugees escaping the conflicts in Sudan, all combined towards an assessment that elections, when held, will take place in an environment of elevated tensions. For the South Sudanese permanent rep to the United Nations, Cecilia Majok Adeng, South Sudan stands at a historical moment, once again with the upcoming elections.
Political competition amongst the ruling elite, increased intercommunal clashes, and the added strain inflicted by the influx of returnees and refugees escaping the conflict in Sudan have all combined towards an assessment that elections, when held, are going to take place in an environment of elevated tensions and a constrained civic and political space in the country. Therefore, if not managed carefully, they carry the potential for violence with disastrous consequences for an already fragile country and a wider region. The United Nations cannot opine whether South Sudan should have elections or not, but can only assess if the transitional government has put in place the requisite architecture for them to be peaceful and credible, and in accordance with the terms of the peace agreement. Failure to do so not only threatens the desired credibility and peacefulness of elections, but also the overarching framework, the peace agreement itself. As things stand, South Sudan is not ready for elections and a lot needs to be done.
South Sudan stands at a historical moment once again. By working together, we can transform South Sudan, a land once torn by conflict, into a beacon of hope, resilience, and prosperity. Let us reaffirm our commitment to peace and build a brighter future for all South Sudanese. I'm speaking from my own experience, and for that reason, I am not ready to have another generation undergo the same. Enough is enough. For South Sudanese have gone through enough struggle, and our leaders are doing their level best with the little experience they have.
In the meantime, the UN mission in South Sudan has condemned the killing of one of its staff in the country. This person was serving with the peacekeeping mission in Wawu in the northwest region. Charles Gone was reportedly killed during an attack by armed men in a relative's home where he was staying. Mr. Gone was on leave from work at the time of the attack that has been linked to cattle rustling. The UN mission has condoled with the family and is urging authorities to immediately investigate the incident. A vicious cycle of cattle raids and reprisal attacks have plagued South Sudan for years, with many thousands of people killed. Let's focus now on Malawi. 6 people have been confirmed dead in the country after last week's flash floods in the central region. Local authorities say over 14,000 others have been displaced, and many of them are now staying in camps. And according to the country's Department of Disaster Management Affairs, many of the places that were affected by the floods are still inaccessible due to the extensive damage caused to roads and other infrastructure. The agency is appealing for more help from individuals, companies and aid organizations to be able to support the government's effort in providing relief. Now, all of this is coming just a year after hundreds of Malawians were killed by Tropical Storm Freddy that ripped through southern Africa. For more on this, we're being joined now by Katherine Tinto. She's a Malawian journalist joining us from Blantyre. Thank you so much, Katherine, for your time.
Thank you, Lyle, for having me.
Well, it's quite unfortunate, these deaths as a result of the flash floods. Talk to us, has the weather subsided now, or Malawi is still experiencing more rainfall?
Well, first of all, I can say that the weather has subsided in some parts of the country, although some parts are experiencing heavy rainfall. But most of the areas as of now, the weather is steady.
Now, many of the places that were affected by the floods are said to still be inaccessible. How have authorities, been able to deliver much needed aid to those stranded?
Well, as you likely put it, that many of the households, specifically in Kodagora district, where the flash floods occurred, they were affected. 6 people died, 4 others were injured. But the Department of Disaster Management Affairs is currently reaching out to people by providing food and reaching out to people using boats and anyhow that can reach them. So basically, that's the situation as of now. People are being provided with the necessities that need to have at this point.
And for the thousands of people displaced, we understand, they're staying in camps. How are they coping with their new living condition, and what is the government's plan, a long-term plan for them?
Well, yeah, a lot of people have been displaced. We are talking about 40,100 people now. And currently, Dotma has set up camps. And those camps include 9,358 people that are currently in camps. And the case is partly because last year we had the same issues, and now we are talking about the same issues again this year. There are fears from the general public and other parts of the country as well that maybe what should we do for us to be cautious? What should we expect? This is only we're talking about whatever district. What about other areas? What about other districts? What ought to be done? So not only the fear for those living in camps, but other people as well. They are afraid. They don't know what to expect. The weather, of course, there are some weather updates from the meteorological service, but still people are, they don't know what to expect. But, the situation is not that.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Katherine Tinto, Malawian journalist. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
seeing pictures there from Gaza, even as locals are rushing to collect the packages from Egypt and the UAE after they conducted a second joint airdrop of humanitarian aid over northern Gaza. The operation is dubbed Birds of Goodness. Footage shows the Emirati and Egyptian aircraft releasing the aid and the boxes parachuting down, as well as locals rushing to collect the packages. According to media reports, 3 planes took part in the operation, carrying 42 tons of food and medicines and bringing the total delivered under the program to 78 tons. Operation Birds of Goodness comes as part of Operation Gallant Night 5 that was launched in November. It's expected to continue for several weeks, and the first joint airdrop carried out by the nations took place Thursday last week, even as fighting continues in Gaza in the 5th month of the Israel-Hamas conflict. Meanwhile, South Africa is calling for the use of force in breaking Israel's blockade on aid getting into Gaza. Minister of International Relations Naledi Pandor said this on Tuesday while meeting with her Danish counterpart in Pretoria. She says powerful armed forces of the world should be instructed by their presidents or prime ministers to the Rafah border, and their soldiers escort trucks into Gaza and the West Bank. According to her, since these are very close friends of Israel, quote, surely they will be allowed safe passage. I can't imagine them being fired upon by the Israeli forces, end of quote. We turn our attention now to the growing concerns about the potential impact of climate change for South Africa's agricultural sector. Recent years have seen the country grappling with a series of natural disasters, including the current heat wave affecting parts of the nation. All experts fear that climate change could exacerbate these challenges, leading to price inflation on agricultural products. Our South African correspondent, Innocent Samosa, has more in this report.
Vegetable company farm workers are in the midst of harvest time. A good quality product is set to hit the market. However, it all depends on Mother Nature. Climate change is accelerating, with more extreme weather ranging from heat waves, drought to floods. This indicates long-term shift in temperature and weather patterns. 34-year-old green beans farmer Sophie Musabeni is feeling the impact of climate change.
Especially for me as a farmer, I'm so disappointed with the climate exchange because there's a shortage of rain, and when it rains with a hailstorm, then it destroys my crops.
This has forced her to adapt.
So I bought a bigger pump, but we are having also a problem of load shedding. So sometimes there's no electricity and I don't have anything that I can use to support the pumps that I bought.
Recently, Stats SA reported a decline in agricultural production for the fourth quarter of 2023.
The strongest drawdown in terms of contribution came from agriculture, having went down with contribution negative 0.4 of a percentage point.
In a quest to address climate change and food security, the Mangosuthu University of Technology is partnering with Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University.
The first thing that we are working on is, number one, to develop a manifesto where young people in particular are going to commit themselves on how they are going to address all these issues of energy, water, food, and climate change. We're going to be hosting a delegation of more than 80 students from the US, and we are sending invitations to all our more than 30 partners.
Well, the climate change bill is currently before Parliament, and it aims to develop an effective climate change response and a long-term just energy transition to a low-carbon and climate-resilient economy and society in South Africa. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the program. Liberia's lower house votes to set up a war crimes court in the country. Please stay with us for more details. Welcome back to the program. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations says climate change is impacting women farmers in low and middle income countries, causing billions of dollars of losses among female-headed farming households. And this therefore widens the income gap among the rural poor. This was revealed in its report called The Unjust Climate, measuring the impact of climate change on the rural poor, women and youth. The report combined socio-economic data from over 950 million rural people across 24 countries with over 70 years of climate data to quantify how extreme weather events are adversely impacting female-headed households' livelihoods to a greater degree than those male-headed.
The problem with climate change is it's not stopping, it's accelerating. So if we had another 1 degree Celsius change in the climate, it means that over time women would lose 34% more of income than men in situations in middle and low income countries where there's already a lot of stress on these households to produce enough income to feed their families and to pursue their livelihoods. Climate change is a major challenge for poor people, and particularly for women. And it's a challenge for women because they can't easily adapt to climate change as men can, because they don't have as much access to resources, to assets, to services that would allow them to adapt to the challenges that a changing climate poses. For example, women don't often have as much ownership of land as men. Women may not have access to technology like drought-resistant seeds. What's really important is to design investments and to increase the amount of money that's going towards projects which not only address these kind of asset and resource gaps, but also try to transform social norms or empower women so that they have more agency to make decisions for their family. Because we know that doing that can have really big benefits in terms of household level incomes, dietary diversity, food security, and resilience. A U.S. federal appeals court has dismissed a lawsuit that alleges that 5 major tech companies were complicit in the use of child labor to mine cobalt in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The lawsuit, which was thrown out on Tuesday, named Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, Dell Technologies, and Google's parent company Alphabet. The court ruled that the companies purchasing cobalt does not mean they participated in forced child labor. According to Judge Naomi Rao, the plaintiffs failed to show that the accused companies had influence to stop the use of child labor in the mines. A lawyer for the plaintiffs, however, warns that they are not finished when it comes to seeking accountability for their client, adding that they may appeal against the ruling. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, in the DRC, which produces 60% of the world's supply of cobalt, at least 25,000 children work in the mines, often in dangerous conditions.
Liberia's lower house of parliament has approved a motion to set up a war crimes court. This is coming more than 2 decades after the end of a devastating civil conflict. In 2009, a Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommended the establishment of the court, but the move was resisted, particularly because a number of accused warlords remained influential in the country. About 250,000 people died during Liberia's civil wars between 1989 and 2003. Well, lawmakers have been celebrating as the resolution to set up a war crimes court was passed. It will now be debated by Liberia's Senate before being passed on to President Joseph Boakai. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, in Nigeria says it has intercepted 21 trucks loaded with food items as they made their way out of the country through the Kalabiri, Gamboru, Ngala and Bama roads in Borno State, northeast Nigeria. The anti-corruption agency explains that the items were heading towards Chad Republic, Central African Republic and Cameroon, with the food items cleverly concealed in the trucks. Some persons have been arrested and are being profiled and will be charged to court as soon as investigations are completed. There have been attempts to tighten security at the nation's borders to tackle the smuggling of food items out of the country, especially in the face of scarcity and rising cost of food in the nation. At the 2024 World Youth Festival taking place in Russia, the executive chairman of the South African Youth Economic Council, Bonga Makanya, highlights the advantages of shared cooperation, saying it is building on the success of the BRICS organization. He added that the relationship South Africa has with Russia specifically is one of mutual benefit and not an extractive relationship where international investments come to get all the resources out and live in nothing. Delegates from various countries are taking part in this World Youth Festival in the Cyrus Federal Territory, holding from March 1st to March 7th. According to the organizers, it intends to develop international youth cooperation and bring together 20,000 young people.
Got that type of a relationship where it's not an extractive relationship where, you know, international investors come to get all the resources out and leaving us with nothing, but there's a mutual benefit in that. So we're looking for more of those type of relationships in different industries, not just in mining and energy, but in all types of ICT, communications, where we get Russian companies and South African companies to partner.
It is my third time in Russia, and I like the way the Russian welcome people from all the world, and it is very interesting to see people speaking Spanish, speaking Russian, speaking English, speaking French. We are in one world. It is multipolar, multilateral world, and we need to talk each other. We need to talk together to be one.
I'm from Sudan. I am only just first delegates coming from Sudan because all one know about what happened in our country. But I want to say from Russia government, I am very happy because I am here, because we are here today to participate all ones around all the world, our experience and to share our knowledge and to learn new things in our life.
Financial resilience is possible through a hard work and resilience for anyone who's ready and can commit to the process. Now, this is the counsel offered by finance and wealth coach Mrs. Shola Adeshaki, who spoke on our women leadership program, Transform Her. The CEO of Smart Stewards also shared her personal story about how she moved from a zero account balance to saving in 8 digits.
Realized, you know what, I'd worked many years, earned $500,000. What was I doing with my money? Hopping on planes, BA promo ticket to the UK, 90K jump on it. Atlanta, 90K jump. That was what I was doing with my money. I wasn't even building houses or, you know, building assets. So I prayed to God and I said, God, give me a second chance. I promise you.
As we all do.
As we all do. And look at it. I went through the motions, the process of learning, okay, so what can I do in additional? I started to apply. Who would take a pregnant lady? But 6 months into my pregnancy, when my face was all swollen, I got a job. And I did so well that they retained me, and the rest, as I say, is history. But I learned, it was a space of 1 year.
Wow.
What does it mean to budget? What does it mean to save? And that was what led me into all of this smart stewardship stuff. Yes. These days, I have saved and invested in 8 digits, 9 digits. I literally forget some of my funds in some accounts. Saying that to say, it doesn't matter where you have been and the mistakes that you have made. You can go from one bad extreme and continue the process. I'm not on the other extreme. On the other extreme, I should be on Forbes list now.
Oh, you have started with the coaching council?
So I'm saying that it's a journey.
For the full interview, you can watch more on this program at 4:30 p.m. right here on Channels Television. And that's it on Network Africa for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.